All right, in no particular order, but because I made slides, so in a particular order, I would like to call up our first speaker, Zaz Linkous. They are going to be doing a presentation on game design and documentation. Zaz, let me set this to 5 minutes whilst you walk over. And, all right, again, you have Jillian in the front. She has a 1-minute card. She has a time's up card. I'm going to be hanging out over there. And so your time starts now.
All right, thank you. Hello, folks. I'm Zaz, and I'm going to start with a relatable anecdote. Who has been in the position of explaining that their job is a thing? I worked for a game company, and this happened to me over and over again. I'd be talking to one of the engineers in SME, being like, okay, I need to cover this kind of complex subject that's really like tripping up our users, and they'd be like, can't be done. I'm like, why don't you let me try? This is literally what I spend all of my brain cells on. Please just let me attempt to do the thing. So what I figured out in the game company eventually was to start framing things in terms of game design, because games are extremely refined into actually paying attention to user experience and like the journey that people are going on. They just approach it really, in many ways, very similar to us, but also they have a couple of different concepts. And so that's what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so show of hands, figuring out how nerdy we are. If I say the phrase Mario 1.1, raise your hand if that means something to you. Okay, all right. So for everybody else, Nintendo is extraordinarily good at these beautiful, refined pipelines into learning the mechanic. And the way they do this, and Mario 1.1 is like a total cliche in game design, is they introduce the tool in a completely safe scenario. So Mario walks up, there's a cliff going down. If you fall into it, you can jump back up, or you can jump over. Nothing bad happens to you. They've introduced it in a safe circumstance. The next time you see a jumping opportunity, there's no bottom to the cliff. You have now learned in a less safe, and this progresses, and you'll see this anything Nintendo has made. They're extraordinarily, maybe maniacally, possibly too good at this. And like, if you happen to be working in like e-learning or something very straightforward where you really like can control the user's path the whole time, this might apply to you, right? Introduce it safely, continue from there. But for the rest of us working on documentation, we aren't making Mario 1.1, we are making Elden Ring. We are making Grand Theft Auto. Everybody's doing everything all at once. They're on top of each other. If they can talk to each other, then God help us all. It's a much more chaotic environment. But the thing is that game design actually has answers to this too. They aren't as like tidy and just, neat as like Mario 1.1, but at the same time, there are amazing ways to start picking apart how to direct users. And I'm going to kind of tell you my 2 favorite resources on this. So the first one is The Art of Game Design, The Book of Lenses. It's by Jesse Schell. Schell is S-H-E-L-L. He runs a company called Schell Games. I know, right? We love puns. And it basically, what it does is it breaks down looking at game design as to coming back and looking at your game through another lens. So one of my favorite lenses is the lens of cheating. What about your game encourages cheating? And when you think about that, you're like, okay, yeah, I guess you do get to go to the fiery pit of hell, and that's kind of fun and sort of funny, and I've probably really incentivized these trolls over time. And we look at this, and we create these problems all the time because we're trying to solve very complex things, especially when you have multiple people, simultaneously engaging with something. And you can think about that too. What about the way my docs works encourages people to intentionally misread it? What gives them the opportunity to, I don't know, thumbs down just because they can? I'm very skeptical of the thumbs up, thumbs down. That's a bad game mechanic. That's not a good game. Nobody wins. But so, and Schell Games, it has some antiquated, I think, ideas about female demographics, but that's one of my favorite resources. The best thing is there's something called the Deck of Game Design. So if you go to Schell Games, you'll find the Deck of Game Design, and it is like a tarot deck of 100 cards of random ways you can start looking at your game, which is your documentation, and it's magnificent. The second thing is, how did they make Breath of the Wild, which your documentation might be if you're living in a very peaceful thing? They modeled it after theme parks. So when you're building something that people can just chaotically move through, you're depending on a couple of things, and they all come from a book called The Image of the City, which has nothing to do with games. It's about literally constructing cities. But what it does is it breaks the world into, I'm going to use the ones I care about, which are nodes, paths, so paths and where they intersect, nodes, walls, which are necessary, and landmarks, which direct people. And there's really great stuff on how they did landmarks in Breath of the Wild and how they're all triangles for some reason. But Disneyland has this too. And I highly recommend looking into this and applying it to getting everyone to navigate your games. Thank you.
Next up, we have of Docs and Dogs, Kate Mueller. And she is going to switch this off. Yeah.
Do I get to go now?
I have to start the timer. Starts now, 5 minutes.
All right, hello, my fellow Not Boring documentarians. My name is Kate Mueller. I am the current host of the Not Boring Tech Writer podcast. I also have the illustrious title of Documentation Goddess at Knowledge Owl. And I'm here today to talk to you about how thinking about dogs will make you think better about your docs. So to start with, let me introduce dog number 1. This is my dog, Zola Batty Makota. She is a 10-year-old special needs husky mix. She really loves hiking and falling into pillows. She has a seizure disorder, and she has abnormalities in a couple different parts of her brain. So what that means is she falls over a lot, she falls off things, she has problems with depth perception, motor control, you name it, she's probably got it going on, but she is the sweetest little baby. Look at this face. What she doesn't have going on is tolerance for uncertainty. So when she gets confused, she gets agitated. And when she gets agitated, she screams like a disgruntled Wookiee. So I have been incentivized to create a highly structured day every day. We have routines within routines. She gets certain treats at certain times. We do certain activities at certain times. And this generally keeps the Wookiee screaming to a minimum in my household. Dog number 2 that I would like to introduce you to is Marcy Moo. Marcy is not my dog. She is my friend's dog. I dog sit for her. She is a 6-year-old mutt who has mild to moderate anxiety and a super sensitive tummy, and she is obsessed with sunbeams. She also hates rain, so when it rains, she gets to wear her special rain robe, which I call her Moo Hefner robe. And when I started dog sitting Marcy, I was like, oh, she's really anxious. I don't know how she's gonna do in my house because our routines are totally different from her routines. What if she doesn't eat, because that's what happens when she gets anxious, or she barks a lot? Refer to my previous I don't like screaming Wookiee sounds comment. But it turned out that because we had this nicely, consistently structured thing for Zola, who desperately needs it to get through the day, Marcy adapted almost immediately to coming to our house. And so she can get dropped off at any point in the day and know almost exactly where we're at in the day, what's happening, what's expected of her. She eats, she does not bark, she does not get super stressed. What on earth does this have to do with docs other than an excuse for me to show you dogs? I think it's a fantastic metaphor for how we think about structuring our documentation. Our readers come to our docs in generally a fairly stressed state. Like Zola, they can be confused, they can be agitated. Hopefully they're not screaming like disgruntled Wookiees, but they might be. And the more we can consistently and predictably structure what we are giving them, the less stressed they will be, the happier they will be, the more successful they will be. So if you are designing your docs for Zola, you're designing for somebody who's going to browse, who's going to be there a lot, and who needs a lot of structure. That means that you want to do good, clear, top-level navigation options. You want predictable content hierarchy to find all the things she needs. You want breadcrumbs. You want good cross-references so that she can navigate and know exactly where she is at all times. Marcy, on the other hand, is the reader who gets dumped in via search, via a link from somebody to an anchor that's 3/4 of the way down the page, and she has to try to figure out where the information is that she needs. So she wants same page and intra-page consistency. That means not only write a style guide, but actually follow it. Use content types or templates for things that are similar so that they become predictable and expected. And use sequential headings and other very clear visual markers to help folks know where they're at and what they're doing. If you manage to achieve that, your reward is that your readers, who are probably stressed and agitated and really unhappy when they came in, instead find a place of safety and respite. Not only do they find what they need, they leave more confident, they leave less stressed, and they are way less likely to be screaming disgruntled Wookiees. And in 2025, we all need spaces that make us less stressed and not more stressed. So on that note, I would like to thank you very much. My name is Kate Mueller. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow the Not Boring Tech Writer. If you want to be a guest or have a topic idea for the pod, please come talk to me. We always want fresh blood. I mean, guests.
I love it. Early, often. Okay, cool. I'm gonna plug my computer back in for just a moment. No, I reduced the number of things I have in my hand, so I appreciate you. I love on time lightning talks. I'm just gonna sing a little bit, it'll be great. Can I have my next speaker queued up? You know who you are, you got this. All right, so we just finished. Kate Mueller of Docs and Dogs. Love a good Docs and Dogs, actually. I saw the title and I was like, do I need to read the description? I did, to be clear. It went through the same evaluation. Nico Berry to the stage. Welcome, Nico. Nico, just in case you have not read this particular beautiful slide that is next to me, is going to be talking about the many faces of the developer persona, which I love, I'm here for. So yeah, now we switch it back. And we go da-da-da-dun-dun. Half of you just finished that song in your head. Thank you for that. And now I restart. All right, timer ready?
Timer ready.
Okay, well, 3, 2, 1, it's on you.
All right. Hey, everybody.
No. You're connected and you need a microphone.
Oh.
And Sam.
Is this thing not going?
It does not move.
Hey, everybody. I made slides, but they're not working, so we're just going to do this unplugged and unfiltered. So, lightning talk. Lightning talk topic, the many faces of the developer persona. Here's the situation we got. A lot of us work for companies. The companies have products, and the products have users. And so to make sense of who all those users are, of course, they come up with user personas. And for a lot of us, one of those personas is developer. However, is that all there is to it? Computer science, programming, engineering, it's such an enormous field that really no one person is able to learn all of it in a single human lifespan. And so this means that actually developer might be a bad way to create a monolithic category of user persona. There are different types of developers. They know different things. They have different practices. They deal with different challenges at work. And they use different tools in their day-to-day jobs. And so it pays a lot to unpack the idea of the developer into other things. What fields are they in? Who is their boss? Who are their customers? Are they working for the government? Are they working making software for end consumers or for other businesses? These things end up mattering. And the way that it ends up mattering to technical writers is it tells us, it tells all of you, what you need to actually focus on in the documentation, and in some cases, the level that you need to write at for expertise. So a couple of just practical suggestions going on here that I've found over a lot of interactions with developers, talking with a lot of them, getting a lot of feedback. If you are working on a product that is used in the front end, always over-explain. And there is a reason why. You can have surveys of your developers that say that their average level of experience is 10 or more years, but on the front end, you will still want to over-explain and treat people like beginners for 2 reasons. The first one is, a lot of people who have lots of experience as an engineer get pulled into the front end and don't have a lot of experience there because some people think a developer is a developer is a developer, and you can just take the You can take the Java developer out of the back end and just have them do JavaScript because they're the same thing. Because, you know, it has Java in it, just like a car and a carpet are the same thing. Also, even people who do a lot of work in the front end, the frameworks there are changing constantly. So you have to be explaining things to people because maybe they're learning something new today. On the back end, there are a few things that you can do there. The first one is pay attention to architecture. This is where you bring out your inner artist, and I have a whole bunch of slides. They're so beautiful, but they're not up there. This is where you draw your fancy diagrams. This is where you draw the flowcharts, all of your ladder diagrams, and the reason why is because the back end is such an abstract space to describe. Visual learning helps a lot, and even if it isn't necessary for the developer using it, I have been told on multiple occasions that developers who are working with my product, they appreciated those diagrams because they could show them to their business leaders. And it made it much easier to explain what was actually happening and why it mattered. Number two, walking through security matters a lot more on the back end because that's usually where the dangerous stuff goes on. Then, at this point, I don't know. There's a lot of other developer personas, and we're going to have to, keep that in mind and go forward and try and figure out what the meaningful differences are between them and figure out how that affects us. Like, you got data engineers. You also have people who are non-developer developers who can use the API as maybe like a power user, a systems administrator. Really? It's a rabbit hole. You can go very far down it. Anyway, thank you guys.
Do you want your computer back? That one's yours. Thank you, Nico. It's also, please give a hand for all of our speakers while we do this setup moment anyway. We are going to thread Liz's slide with her name and her talk title in after this, and I'm going to turn off this ringing alarm. Liz is talking about secret Google magic. And then, Liz? Yes. Okay, it does say end, but here, your time starts now.
Hello, I am Liz Argle. There is an interactive component while we get ready for putting the... Yes, the slides are up. You get to see all my tabs. Look at the... How to say you're a technical writer without saying you're a technical writer. I am a technical writer, consultant, and trainer. I have extensive experience as a sole technical writer, full-time employee when I managed a youth circus, consultant and coach for executives and solo change makers, and lots of experience working with mad people that want to do extraordinary things with tiny teams. That is my QR code that takes you to my portfolio site. I love making impossible things start to become possible thanks to documentation stories. Yes, there is an interactive component. If you have a phone or a laptop, please make sure it's connected to Wi-Fi or get close to somebody who has such a thing. So, many users don't want to navigate our beautiful architectures, though they still need it. Yay for dogs and docs. They might not even know our architectures exist. Many users just want to Google it. But we can use Google's own resources to emulate user experiences and to find out all those lurkers are asking about our products. The people who actually give feedback are actually edge cases in and of themselves. They are often more likely to be people like us who are giving feedback and actually engaging. But there are other ways that you can find out what's going on. And Michael Keaton.
The Wired autocomplete interview. Why Michael Keaton? That's so existential. Why any of us, really? Why Michael Keaton? This is the best prep now. Because I am. Michael Keaton, Birdman. I love Birdman. For the Wired auto...
Okay, so everybody on your phone, go to google.com. I've used this on multiple projects, and it's been incredibly insightful. And just start to type Linux, and you'll get to see it has all these suggestions. And if you keep typing, then go space error, you'll see more things related to that, then space code. And you'll see that it's auto-completing, it's suggesting things. And if you're on desktop, you might get something like this, Linux error codes 127.2.9. So now you've got an insight into user behavior, and you could even go to google.com.au or something like that. And so you're seeing this is what people are actually searching for. This is the behavior they're doing, and then you can go, okay, I'm going to go to your company error codes or any any term that user support has come up with, and you can go, okay, Linux error code 22. And then you can say page ranking. Okay, well, when I search my product, my company, of that sort of thing, are we the first search result? Are we above the fold? People don't like to go above the fold. What is the health of that resource? And what is the first URL people see? And just by doing that, for example, I worked on Project Aria, which was about advancing machine perception and augmented reality research. It was called Aria. So when people searched for Aria, they found Ariana Grande. They found opera. When they searched for Aria calibration, you needed to calibrate your Aria glasses, look at various bits of information. Aria was also the Fitbit scale, so we'd had to compete with Fitbit. And so by typing in Aria calibration, I was able to get insights into it, and then be able to, using good old-fashioned, I'm not good at SEO stuffing, but just by putting Aria, Project Aria in things, creating several key pages to meaningfully create cross-links, and surface that information, I managed to get Aria calibration as the third hit, which is pretty impressive. And it also helps you understand what is out there. So like Aria has an SDK. That's great. Aria is also, as a lot of you would be familiar with, kind of important in terms of HTML web accessibility. So it lets you get to know the user experience. You get very hands-on, like what is it like for the user when they're trying to do it. You can use different search engines, though Google is what a lot of people, even in the science world, use. You can use your internal search engines as well. I have some spreadsheets around how you can then use that to do a search term analysis and feed it back into other quality improvement processes. I'm a big fan of there is so much data out there, and getting the right kind of data and being really creative about that. So go forth to your workplaces and use Google autocomplete to improve things, give info to your developers, and show how much words matter.
Alrighty. I believe I have one speaker left. We're going to try and get this up for a moment just for funsies, and he is a fast walker. Folks, many of you have met or interacted with or seen him online or read some of his articles, and that's not why he was picked. I really liked his pitch, so it's not nepotism. I think I've met you once, actually, so, it's a very scientific process, by the way. Very scientific. I have to look at all of the talks several times, and then I have to look at all the submissions. So with that and your assurances that it's all science in action, I'm going to give Tom the mic. I'm going to look at my times people, and I'm going to say the 5 minutes starts now.
All right. A few years ago, I had some complaints from a product manager who said that our partners could not really find what they were looking for in reference documentation. We had a lot of attributes, and they would meet, and they just couldn't find them, and it was really frustrating. And I tried different things to try to solve this problem, and I realized that reference documentation is just not built very well for our human brains to kind of consume. Oh, wow, the famous technical hurdle I heard about. Oh, no, okay. The problem with reference documentation is that it's just a flat list of tables a lot of times. You might have really nested elements. For example, you might have like elements nested at 4 different levels, but then the reference documentation just has, it just has a list of sequential tables where one table lists an object, and then it says, okay, for the list of those objects members, see this next table down, and you keep cascading down, and it's not very user-friendly. So what I created were these API quick reference diagrams that basically create a tree diagram, nothing new, but a tree diagram of the most complex parts of the API. And these diagrams could be hundreds of elements. One of them I have is 350 elements listed here. Each one of the elements links to its to its place in the reference documentation, which is key. This allows the product managers, engineers, partners to jump right to the element that they want. They can visually consume the whole API at a glance. They can quickly look and see, oh, these elements are nested under this, or this method returns this, and it has this object which has these members, and you're not lost in this list of tables. It really works well. It solved the problem that the product manager was talking about. Since we had these difficult conversations 2 years ago, and then I brought out these diagrams, it has entirely fixed it. I found that there's a bonus application in that you can feed these diagrams into an AI model and really give it a good primer on your API without maxing out tokens. How do you create these? This is the magical part. Now they're pretty easy to create. All you need, you have to first start with an example diagram. So I've got a post there that has some example tree diagrams. They're not hard to find or even create. Once you have that example, upload your reference docs into some AI tool, add that example diagram, and basically just say, hey, can you create an output that looks similar but based on this reference content? The AI tools have an amazing ability to dive through hundreds of pages of, or hundreds of different parts of a file that has all your reference and develop a tree diagram. So you don't really have to do a whole lot other than fact check it. I like to think of AI tools as like a transformation machine. You put a lot of stuff in one end that might be kind of unstructured or a lot of different information. You show it the pattern you want, which is kind of like programming it to have that output, and then it outputs the shape that you want. And tree diagrams are one of these shapes that I hadn't really considered. I mean, it's not really a common deliverable that we offer, but now I've made it a part of every API documentation set of files that I deliver to people. Right around the overview, I will add this diagram. It's great as like a starting off point because it allows people to bypass so much other information. One of the key parts of this is that you've got to link each of the elements of the diagram. And there's really just a couple of steps to this. I recommend using variables and then defining those variables in another file. Because if you have a diagram, an ASCII text diagram, you don't want to have a bunch of HTML code directly in that you're working with. Really works out this way. Make sure that all the variables are unique for the outputs. And that's pretty much it. I invite you to experiment with this, especially in a day and age where AI tools can easily create these. There's really no excuse for not experimenting and seeing. Our users love them, and it's something I definitely want to promote, and others on my team have also started to create them. So thanks.